Everything is God in disguise. The discovery of this is the most beautiful thing that a human being can discover. In fact, it's why we're here. When you discover that God is all that is, when the source of creation, which is pure grace, pure love, pure wisdom, pure truth, all encompassing, nothing separate from it, nothing can ever be separate from it. When you discover this, it's freedom. This is what we're all here to discover. It means without belief or disbelief, without the need for thought whatsoever, without the need for anything created by the mind. You see that separation from the source is impossible. That means there's no hell outside of your own creation. There's no such thing as hell, as in an eternal separation from the source of creation. It's impossible. And you can know this directly for yourself. In fact, it's the birthright and the great privilege of every human being to come to realize God directly as the eternal truth of who and what we are, because it's all that is. There's a mental image, the whole structure of thought, which creates division, separation, which says, here I am, and there you are, and therefore here's my birth and here's my death, and I know these things and I don't know these other things. All of that game of division and separation. You're this kind of person, I'm this kind of person, and on and on and on. And when you wake up to the omnipresence of God, actually, not the way in which that may be commonly understood religiously, but what that actually means, you see that you you wake up to the joke of it all. You see the joke of it all. And there's a great urge, a great desire to want to run around, waking everybody up. And at the same time, seeing that you can't. But everything in you wants to try. But you see that it's not possible because you didn't wake you up. I mean, it wasn't the ego that woke itself up. There was some grace that descended. There was some grace that gave itself to you as a gift. And you realized it was you giving yourself to yourself, but the deep self. And that required a sacrifice of the false self to the true self. And the willingness to do so is in the seeing that it's so unnecessary. It's the most grateful surrender. And you don't lose anything but what's not real. You only lose what's false. And you never had what was false to begin with. That's the thing. You only lose what you never really had. So it's really a win-win. Enlightenment is a win-win. Waking up is a win-win. Coming into the eternal, immovable presence of wisdom is a win-win. There's no... And what it means is the capacity, also not let's say what it means, but what it allows is for the capacity to feel anything and everything. That means that, to feel, and it's important to feel everything. It's important to feel the depth and the totality of suffering. It's not just important, but it's absolutely essential to feel the depth of sorrow, the depth of human tragedy, the tragedy of violence, the tragedy of fear, the tragedy of false belief, the tragedy of belief at all, of even having to live in belief, the tragedy of the conditioning within which we live, which is not natural to us. What we call oftentimes the human condition is not the human condition, it's human conditioning. It's psychological conditioning. It's not true. And part of the conditioning is the belief that the conditioning is our natural state, our deepest state, imprinted into us biologically, genetically, and neurologically, chemically, hormonally, and it's not true. It's not true. It was never true. And sometimes part of that realization, I mean, there's laughter and tears, and you cry and you laugh in both ecstasy, joy, as well as sorrow. Seeing and the sorrow fades, the sorrow disappears, the but it'll keep coming up again as a reminder, as long as you need to be reminded, not to not to be haughty, not to be cocky, not to be violent. That is not to adopt the attitude of, ah, well, I'm enlightened now and you're not. Or, you know, not to make an image of oneself as someone who is awake. Not to make an image of yourself, not to have an idea about yourself and to build a philosophy about yourself and who you are and what you're supposed to be doing and making an image of, because when you wake up to the truth, one way to put it is that you see that what you are is the truth, because the truth is all there is, and that is you, that is we, that is all there is. There's no division. And when you see that someone doesn't know, one of the traps, one of the pitfalls of mind, of ego, is feeling smug, like, oh, well, I know now, right? And, oh, here's all the ways in which you're wrong. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help. It doesn't help it doesn't help that person feel heard or seen or understood. It doesn't foster or engender communion or connectivity or relationship. It's just another method, it's another form of a superiority complex. And all superiority complexes, by the way, are sort of hiding an inferiority complex. And so superior and inferior go together. And, that's not what we want. We want everyone to wake up and be free. And it can be easy to forget because, see, when you return to the natural state, you see how easy it is, actually. And you see you never really left it. You were just pretending to have left it. And you see the whole nature of the drama of psyche and how it's a great show. It's a great pretense. It's a great drama that we've bought into. And then we've told ourselves that we have to stay bought into it for the sake of survival or money or relationship or family or marriage or whatever, business. And the truth is it's not true. It's just not true. You don't have to stay bought into the drama of the mind. You don't have to at all. In fact, the best bet that all of your relationships have, whether it's family or friends or lover, partnership, spouse, business, whatever, the best bet any of your relationships have is to completely knock it off, to drop the drama completely, and to return to the natural state and to live from the natural state, and to say what you mean. When it's yes, say yes. When it's no, say no. When it's stop, say stop. When it's move, say move. Just being honest, being clear, being straightforward. And if you're on the path of knowledge, then what happens is you acquire a great wealth of knowledge. I mean, encyclopedias worth of knowledge you will acquire in all sorts of fields that are perhaps conceptually related to spirituality or spiritual inquiry or religion or history, language, all of this. And there's nothing wrong with it. But then, before coming home to the natural state, these things are sort of used as defenses and moats and walls, barriers between you and the dangerous so called less intelligent or unenlightened world in order to keep yourself safe from psychological harm or cerebral harm or physical harm. We use our intellect and our knowledge as a kind of a weapon, as a defense system.